It's gonna be good, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be better, I can't wait. Making my move, live for the day, sing like a bird, fly like a plane. Come spin with me, Jenny D. Jenny D. Jenny D.
Hello, my beautiful people. Thank you for joining me with another episode on Spill With Me, Jenny D podcast. I am just so excited. I have my guest here, but before I introduce her, it's June. It's Alzheimer and Brain Awareness Month. I would like to thank my spotlight supporter, Ed Meyer. Ed, thank you so much. He is the owner of Tri-State Office Furniture. I appreciate you being an advocate and being a spotlight supporter for Jenny D. I am just so excited to have my guest here. So Gina and I, actually, we just met a couple, like maybe a month ago. We were at Ignite in Washington, and we were listening to some speakers about small businesses and AI. And then we started talking afterwards, and I was like, wait, Gina, my topic in June is Alzheimer's, dementia. You know, we're talking about that. And when she was telling me with her business, I thought, this is the perfect fit.
Yeah.
So Gina, introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again so much. I'm so glad to have met you.
Oh, me too.
And so my name is Gina Luliucci. I live in Washington, PA. I've worked in senior communities for over 25 years. I started as a music therapist, and then I was in life enrichment. I was administrator for a standalone dementia community, also a memory care director. And after about 25 years in various job titles in communities, I realized that throughout that time, there was just so many folks that came to me, and by that time they had already made the decision, to move someone they love into a senior community. But there were so many questions, and when they had just gotten the diagnosis, they just didn't know where to turn.
That is really hard.
Yeah.
When I was talking to some guests of mine before, and with the knowledge that we have nowadays compared to what we had, I was telling them my grandmother, my mother's mother, she had Alzheimer's, and I was back in middle school, and I remember KDKA. Do you remember? I don't know if you were here still.
No, probably.
Okay, well, Stacy Smith, he was the.
I knew him now.
Okay, yes, yeah. He was the announcer, and he actually came to our house and interviewed my mom, because my mother was actually going to nursing school as she was taking care of my grandmother.
Wow.
Well, my grandmother was sick with Alzheimer's for 5 years.
Yeah.
So my mother, the weight on her shoulders to watch her mother just become so, like, it's a terrible thing to say. I hate the word vegetable, but it's almost like it just wasn't her.
Yeah.
Everything. She lost how to, use her motor skills, how to, speak, everything. And it just was so hard to watch that. So, like, talking to you about, what you did for 25 years, I mean, you've probably seen a lot. And the caregivers they don't get as much credit, or they don't get as much, like, they need help.
Yeah.
Just as much as the patient needs help.
Absolutely.
I mean, tell us a little bit about what you saw during, and, if you've been affected, because I feel like, a lot of people, I don't know the statistics, have been affected by dementia or Alzheimer's or some type of form of brain cognitive
absolutely.
impairment. Yeah.
So in the United States alone, there's over 7 million seniors, 65 years of age or older, who have some form of dementia.
Okay.
So there's many different forms of dementia is the word we use, the umbrella word we use for loss of cognitive skill. And then there's many brain diseases that cause dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common, accounting for about 80% of seniors who have dementia have Alzheimer's disease. So we often connect dementia and Alzheimer's and memory loss together because memory with Alzheimer's disease, it's the short-term memory part of the brain where short-term memories are kept, where that disease affects first. So
Do you find, okay, then this is my question now, because I'm wondering now, is it mostly elderly? Is there a certain age that you see, Gina, that you can see them, like, because sometimes, I remember in my 40s, now
Mhm.
this is, another subject, but when I was going through perimenopause,
Yeah.
the brain fog, the not, remembering things, and you're thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, am I having the onset of dementia?
right.
As a woman, like, that was a very scary time to
Yeah.
realize.
And I think we all have those times, especially when our hormones are changing as women.
Yes.
But we all have those times where, we think, I walked into a room and I completely forget what I was going to get, or I'm forgetting people's names, and is this dementia? And so there is normal aging, and then there's dementia. And that difference really occurs when it interferes with the loss of cognitive skills is really interfering strongly in your daily life. So to the point where it's really interfering. It's not just forgetting things here or there, or losing a name or losing a word, but Alzheimer's starts with memory loss, and it's to the point where you really are forgetting also places and that you've gone to over and over again.
How to lock your front door.
Yes.
I remember with my grandmother, the first signs was she didn't know how to turn on the stove.
Yeah. Something that she's
and
done
I
her
thought,
entire life.
How would she not know how to turn on the stove?
Yeah.
But that's something. So when you start seeing those first little signs, is that like, when should you like consult the doctor, or talk about like the facilities, like when a caregiver, when a family member should really start looking into something?
Yeah, so early diagnosis just with any type of illness or disease is key.
Right.
Because especially nowadays we have a lot of, there's so much medical research that has been done, especially on Alzheimer's, mostly through the Alzheimer's Association, but a lot of researchers. And it's really the earlier diagnosis, the more opportunities. We don't have a cure, so it is a progressive disease.
Not yet.
We're looking for the first survivor.
Yes.
But right now, it is a progressive disease. So I think you had asked earlier, people can start with very minor symptoms, and people might not even notice themselves or even someone that lives with them. But as the disease progresses, it takes over, or I should say, kills off more and more brain cells, and we lose more and more cognitive ability. So the earlier we can have a diagnosis, or at least some intervention, the better we can prepare.
Right.
Also, there's medications out there for earlier onset.
Oh, is there? Okay.
There are, and there's
and
also...
what does that help with, that medication? Help slow it down a little bit?
It helps slow down the symptoms.
Okay.
Yes, or the progression of the disease. Doesn't cure it, but certainly helps slow down the progression, so people can live longer with more quality. But also, you hear about a lot of folks who have dementia, and the stigma, people give, as soon as you hear that, they start not talking to that person, so to speak, or they assume that they can't remember, they can't do things, and people really can live a quality life with dementia a long time.
And and it's almost like, I used to think that, like, okay, as you age and get to a certain age, you're going to get something if you don't, cancer or dementia. But we were talking off air, but your grandmothers lived very long, 100 and some years old. And do you find that like, is that something that just happens to us? Like, we just start, our memory loss happens just gradually as we age.
So you're bringing me back to something we were starting to talk about. So there's normal aging, and then dementia. So aging is the number one risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. But that doesn't mean if you live to a ripe old age that you'll get dementia.
Right.
And a lot of times people think that's what happens. And we used to think that dementia was a normal part of aging. Right. It really isn't. It's different. It's a brain disease that affects us cognitively. So our cognitive skills decline. with the
Have you
progression.
seen anybody like young with this?
Oh yeah. Personally, I saw someone. I helped care for somebody in a senior community in their mid to late 40s.
Oh my.
So we think of, and the older I get, the older I think old age is, but really,
right? I say elderly. Well,
I know,
I'm pretty close to
but
there.
it's considered 65 years of age or older is
Yes.
considered a senior. Used to be years ago that the folks that you would see in senior communities or the people that had Alzheimer's or
Right.
another dementia were more like in their 80s.
Right.
And that's what we think of is, the elderly woman or gentleman that's forgetful,
Yes.
and needs some extra help and support. But I believe mostly because of awareness and early diagnosis, we are seeing people much earlier with a variety of different types of dementias.
And I didn't realize this. Gina educated me on this. I feel like I'm learning so much about this horrible disease. Dementia has there's so many different ones. Types.
Yep.
Okay. I just thought, okay, it's dementia. It's just memory loss.
Yeah.
So when there's different types, is it like, I know I was talking to someone about vascular, and then I forget the other names.
Yeah, so there's
So it doesn't
Lewy
matter.
body
Yeah.
dementia,
Lewy body.
frontotemporal.
Yes.
So if those of you who know Bruce Willis,
Yes.
the first thing that came out in the media was that he lost his speech, and for an actor, he lost his ability to speak.
Yes, he did.
So through testing, they found out that he had frontotemporal dementia, and that part
Oh my gosh.
that affects the front and the temporal part of your brain, and part of the part of the brain that was affected for him first was his speech.
Wow.
And so then through testing, they realized I believe he has a dual diagnosis of frontotemporal and Lewy body dementia.
And Lewy body is that like your joints, or is that affects your?
I think you're thinking of Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
Parkinson's, often people who have Parkinson's, they may also have dementia, and it's often Lewy body dementia.
Okay.
And that's also proteins, just like Alzheimer's disease,
Yes.
but different types of proteins that are actually attacking your brain cells, and they connect either inside or to the nerve cell, and they atrophy the cells and they die, and which causes us to decline cognitively.
Right.
And because it's progressive, it may start, say, in Alzheimer's in the hippocampus. It may first start with our memories, loss of short-term memory, but it progresses to the entire brain.
Oh my
Usually.
gosh, Gina. Now, do you think that there is a way, or that something we should do as society? Like, should we go get tested, or just get some blood work done, just to gauge where we are with our brain function?
I think that's a personal choice.
It's not like the doctors
are,
ever say that, like, hey, let's check your brain.
Yeah. So
you're checking everything else, but you're not.
exactly. So that's a very good point. But
Right.
usually your PCP around the age of 65 or so, they'll start to make cognitive testing part of your routine annual visit.
Okay, so 65.
I think it should be earlier.
I think so too.
I don't, not that I want it to be, but I think it should be earlier
And
because
I've noticed too, doing this, Gina, I've been doing a lot of health issues, and I've been seeing that people are getting diagnosed younger and younger.
Yes.
With colorectal cancer, breast cancer, things like that. You would never think. You're always thinking, oh, you're older when you get it. No, it's not
Exactly.
happening. So
Yeah.
we need to bring this awareness to even the younger generations.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of folks who are in their 40s and 50s that are also caring for parents now, aging parents who may be in their 60s,
Right.
or so, that are being diagnosed earlier with dementia. So it's important for those folks to also be aware of dementia and the causes or signs and the
yes.
symptoms, and what can I do when my mom gets this diagnosis. And
Right.
so I think the doctors, as far as having regular cognitive testing, because then you have a baseline.
Yes.
If you have an early baseline, then each year, your doctor can kind of measure that and see if there's any changes,
right.
even mild changes. And
Is that covered under insurance? We probably don't know.
I believe so, because I believe it's part of your regular annual visit.
Okay.
So a regular cognitive test,
Right. And that's just like, I think it's questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's usually pictures or questions, or maybe drawing, little pictures. And that just gives kind of a general idea, especially when you have that baseline, if anything has changed,
right.
Because from one year to the next, or maybe it's every 6 months. But then, the doctor would then, if he has a concern, or you don't score so high on
right.
one of the common ones is MOCA, a MOCA test, MOCHA.
Oh.
Okay. I'm gonna be mad at myself, because if I forget, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment is basically what MOCA stands for.
Oh my gosh! You know so much about this disease.
Oh, it's really, I've worked in senior communities for over 25 years, and probably for the last year and a half is when I started my business. So, and you had mentioned my grandmothers. Yes. I had 2 grandmothers, both that had Alzheimer's disease, and my parent, on both sides, my mom and then my dad's sisters, cared for their mothers for a long time, until they were really at the point where they both needed to go into a senior community. And so I saw how it affected my grandmothers, but also the families as a whole, because it does affect the whole
absolutely.
family.
And I think that the one thing that really, upsetted me is when I saw, my dad's mother, she had dementia, and they just diagnosed it dementia. And that's why I didn't even know there were so many different, types. But I just was so like, every time I'd see her, I'd be like, Grandma, it's me, and you get so frustrated, because you're like, I know she knows it's me. And you're like, I know she, and it's hard for, us, the caregivers, or the people in the back scenes, to watch your loved one
absolutely
not remember you, or remember things that, and I think to myself, well, that's going to probably be me. Like, I will probably go. Do you think it's hereditary, Gina? Do you know?
So there are some genetic components. There are risk factors, and genetics can be a risk factor.
Okay.
Age is a risk factor, but then there's other modifiable, things that we can control, just like being healthy. It's like what's good for the heart is good for the mind, it's good for the body. Also, the other medical conditions, like high blood pressure, cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, all those things are also a risk factor.
I didn't even think about all those. Too.
Yeah, because for instance, vascular dementia is caused by a blood clot in the brain.
Oh my gosh.
Which is a stroke. So somebody can have what's called TIAs, the mini strokes, and not know they're having a stroke, but because they are at risk, for that, they can have, if they have TIAs, they might not know they're having them, but that's causing some damage, and then they're at risk for a major stroke.
Oh my gosh.
And then with a stroke, you can get vascular dementia. So there's about 150 plus different types of diseases that cause dementia. But I think there's about 5 or 6, and then mixed dementias that we mentioned that are more common.
Yes, that are most common.
But so vascular, and I'm trying to remember the statistics. I can't think off the top of my head, but vascular dementia is one of the top 3.
Oh my gosh.
Types of dementias.
I know of someone who I saw just go downhill so fast.
Yeah.
Just wasn't the same person, talking to them and knowing wait a minute, this isn't the same person. Something's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times she would complain that she had a headache. She's like, I have a migraine. My head hurts. And when they started getting care for her, getting her into a neurologist.
Yeah.
Because you can't really diagnose dementia. You can't say, oh yeah, you have dementia. You know, do you like that? You know, or the doctors will say, well, yeah, you have the onset of dementia. But that's still not, it's not giving you the answers you want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? What type is it? You know, can I cure? Can I do something about this? Is there medication I can take?
Right.
You know, that's what makes it so hard as a caregiver,
Yeah.
a family member, for your loved ones. Like, what do I do? What do I do?
And that's where I really felt that there was a gap.
Yes.
You know, there's a diagnosis for the person, for the family, you know, and you get this diagnosis, and doctors don't have the bandwidth to help somebody walk through that journey or navigate,
Right.
you know, the disease. So that's where I feel like what I'm doing, where that comes into play, to help someone walk through that journey and navigate and
educate
help
them.
find resources
Yes.
and to educate. Because like you were saying about your grandmother, you know, it's hard to understand that somebody who has known us for our entire life
Right.
just doesn't remember our name, and we think they must know.
And I feel like they get
Yeah.
frustrated too.
Sure,
I
because
feel like they know,
Yeah.
you know, they're like knowing that they're trying so hard to remember, but they just can't.
well, and they feel that frustration and feel like, you know, why do I not know my grandchild's
Yes.
name? Or, you know, they feel that anxiety and that frustration as well. And so that's why we, as care partners, caregivers, family, so important that we step into their reality.
Right.
We have to meet them where they are, because it's a cognitive changes that are happening to their
Right.
brain. It's not something they can control, and they look like the same. They
Yes.
look like our grandmothers. They look like our spouses.
Right.
You know, but
But they're just not
The brain
acting like
changes.
they used to act. And it's just, you know, and it's hard for us, you know, as, you know, watching someone that we know, like just kind of like everything, it's just going down.
declining.
Declining.
Yeah,
Do you think that there's a rise in it now?
I think maybe
I
because
feel like
of-
I'm hearing it more and more. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's because I'm getting older. And I'm
Well,
just
I
hearing
think
it.
we are more aware as we get older, but I
Right.
also think because of early diagnosis and because of awareness,
Right.
you know, we are hearing about it so much more.
Yes.
And even in senior communities, I mentioned it used to be more folks in their 80s, but we're seeing so many more people in their late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
You know, and then we talked about there's
And
early
are
onset.
you seeing more men or more women?
So generally speaking, women are more affected
I
by
knew it,
Alzheimer's
yes.
or other types of dementia.
So when I was researching, because I do a spin-off called Midlife Mondays, the
Mhm.
Hot Flash Hour.
Mm.
When I was doing that spin-off, I found out that the lack of estrogen in a woman's body, it really takes it, you know, your brain health, your bone health, your heart health. So I started the patch about a year ago for
Mm.
myself. You know, everybody's different. Everybody, you know, finds your own way, your own patch.
Sure.
But this is what I chose to do. I do find that my brain fog, not that it's gone, you know, but you know, it's very much
Cleared up.
much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah.
I feel more present. I don't feel more scattered like I did before. You know, it's really helping me with my bones and just, you know, the feeling of the achiness and not being able to sleep and,
Yeah.
you know, things like
All those
that.
things
like,
we go through as
you know,
women.
menopause.
Yeah.
yes,
Fun.
that,
Fun
that
stuff.
our parents never talked about, you know, because they didn't know and there was
Right.
nobody out there to help them. But do you feel that estrogen could have something to do with more women getting Alzheimer's?
You know, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not clinical, and I think that there are so many different factors,
Right.
and that's what researchers are really looking at. And there is an age factor, a genetic factor, and we talk a lot about women and hormones, but also gut health and
That's
activity. And we saw so much during the pandemic where a lot of folks who are, especially seniors, because they were isolated,
true.
you know, just the increase, the increased isolation and
Right.
how that really caused cognitive decline, you know, because
yes.
of that, you know, we know lack of being mobile, you know, just
Right.
having a sedentary lifestyle. and not engaging and moving as much,
Right.
affects the brain. There's everything we do
Right,
affects our
the
brain.
I know I felt
Yeah.
like there was a lot of depression because a lot of people with the unknown during all that happened to us with having COVID and having that like in our lives, because we were all just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But that's why I didn't just start this podcast, back right after COVID, because I knew there were people crying for help, and I knew there's people at home by themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't know where to go, who to call. So tell us, Gina, about your business. So it's called Dementia. I love the flower.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's a forget-me-not.
Show that. It's so nice.
So that's all. I believe the Alzheimer's Association and other
Yes.
organizations use that or a similar flower.
Yes.
So Dementia Care Solutions. And yes, there are so many resources. It's just, where do you go?
Yes.
Right? So the Alzheimer's Association, or just alz.org, they have a wealth of knowledge, and they post a lot of webinars and
Right.
research and different, let you know what's going on. But what my business is about is really focusing on the caregivers, and educating and training
Yes.
family members who want to learn more about the disease and how to help care for their loved one at home. Also, professional caregivers. We have a lot of seniors in Western Pennsylvania,
Yes.
and we have a lot of senior communities and memory care. And I feel like even our professional caregivers really need education and ongoing education on how to care better for a person.
Right.
With
Because sometimes
dementia.
it's if you're not in it, if it's not happening to you, so you're like, oh, okay. But then once it happens to you, you're like, wait a minute.
And you're in crisis mode.
Yes, you're like, what do I do?
I need to figure out.
Why is my loved one acting the way they're acting? I know this is not right. Like, and then you just get so aggravated, and it weighs on you.
It does.
Because you're like, and then if they do live alone, or if they are not, you're working and you're trying to go back and forth, but you're worried the whole time. What are they doing?
Oh, so many.
Did they leave the house?
concerns.
Did they, are they driving? And so now you don't have a facility. You are more of like call, like they can call you, or do you have a place where they can come?
No, so I do consulting.
Consulting.
So I usually will meet a caregiver at lunch, or
Okay.
not usually at their home if they're caring for someone at home, because we don't want to talk about the person in front of them.
Right.
We don't want to pretend that they're not there, or
Yes.
talk around them. But I usually will meet the caregiver, and we can do one or as many visits or that they like, and really help them through those situations, those daily situations. So I feel like my role is really that bridge between the diagnosis and the day-to-day caring for
Yes.
someone. When this situation happens, when mom doesn't want to shower, when dad, insists on handling finances and he's not able to do it anymore.
Right.
What do we do, or when someone insists on driving?
Yes.
And we know that that's not safe anymore. So or even I'll say outbursts, but it's really that person living with dementia. It's really their way of trying to communicate, and they don't have the capacity to communicate the way they used to, or like we with a healthy brain do. So it's really learning how to approach and how to talk to and how to best care for the person who is living with dementia in a way that is not confrontational.
Right. Patience. I always say I need patience.
But you need those tools too, because when
Right.
somebody's repeating themselves, 50 times in a
Right.
half hour, or you ask them to do something and they just refuse. And you say, I'm just trying to help you.
Right.
And, getting into that type of banter or dialogue is not good for you. It's
No.
not going to help them.
Right.
It's going to be a lose-lose,
Right.
but if you learn some skills and some ways to best approach or communicate to the
Right.
person living with dementia, it'll make caregiving or just living with, or your conversations go so much better.
Because I've noticed, within my family that all of a sudden I'm like talking to someone and they're like, they'll remember something from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But they won't remember something from yesterday.
Yeah. So long term stays.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering,
longer.
Gina. Is long term, is that like?
So especially when it comes to dementia, the rule of thumb is first in, last out. So the things that we from as childhood,
yes,
we tend to remember, especially with Alzheimer's disease, because it affects our short-term memory first.
Yes.
It's those short-term things. Sometimes I can't remember what I had for lunch,
right.
But
or they run
especially
into each other. Like I'm like, wait, was that last week?
Our time reference is, I'll say it was a couple weeks ago and it was a year. But when we're talking about Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, it's really because of that cognitive decline. So it's short-term memories we lose first, and a lot of times it's literally, going back in time.
Yes.
And there's a scale that actually shows you kind of at different stages of Alzheimer's disease,
right.
Kind of what age that person may be in. They may be in an adolescence.
I didn't even think about
or childhood, or even infancy.
Yes.
Because as our cognitive abilities decline, all of those skills, including dressing ourselves,
right.
feeding ourselves, going, to being able to go to the bathroom by ourselves,
right.
and people become incontinent, so it is, losing all those skills,
right.
So
my mother-in-law, she had a brain aneurysm when my husband was in college. And so, it affected, her brain, and sometimes she would outburst, or she would say, but she, like, even right now, she'll remember stuff from like a while ago, and she seems sharp. It's like she knows what's going on in the news and things like that. But then the simplest things she will forget, or like, like common sense things, that you're like, wait a minute, but she's so like sharp and she's so on it, and when you talk to her, it's like, everything's fine. Do you know what I mean? So you don't know. And I thought, because she suffered with an aneurysm years ago, does that have a lot to do with your brain health too?
Sure, it certainly could be, because with an aneurysm, like a blood clot, and it causes difficulty as far as oxygen getting to the brain. So it certainly causes damage. So, and there's no rhyme or reason sometimes, as far as, we have ideas as far as how our memory works, or why people remember certain things as opposed to others. But there's really no exact science, and just our memories in general. Sometimes we remember things more because they're connected to a feeling or an emotion or an event.
Yes.
So, if something happens, if you have a memory, maybe it's when you fell off your bike because you got hurt, or it's connected to something, and
or you have a scar and you see it.
Yes. Yeah, and so you're like, oh yeah, that's when I fell and got. But so, and other things, are maybe lost forever in our memories, unless somebody, brings it up. And you're like,
when I run
remember
into people from like high school or college, sometimes I'm like, I don't remember their name. Or how do I know them? Do I know them from high school? Do I know them from? That's the hardest thing too.
It is.
But a lot of people don't know this about you too. You have a music theory degree, or
music therapy. Yes.
Music therapy.
Music therapy.
So you have that, and that's almost something too. Like, do you find with music?
Yes.
Is very helpful for people too, to listen to a song of. My grandparents always listened to an Italian radio station, you know, and they would listen to it over and over again, and they just loved it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that music is just that special language that everybody can connect to in some way. Two people probably don't have the same interest in music, but if you can find the not just the style, but some of the exact songs,
Yes.
in like somebody's wedding song, or a song that their husband sang to them, or their mother or father
Like a
sang
good
to
memory
them.
song, yes.
Yeah, those really connect
I was
to
just
our
going to say that
emotions.
too. I feel like I'm like,
Yeah, we're on the same
connected.
wavelength.
Yes, I was
Yes,
like, genre.
absolutely.
Yes.
The more we say like autobiographical, the songs that are really meaningful to us, and they're wonderful anytime.
Right.
You listen to a song, it can make you feel really happy. It's a
Yes.
song you may like to exercise to. There's a song that may make you feel really sad.
Yeah.
But with music, there's an organization out there called Music and Memory, and it really it was a social worker, actually, I believe, in California, who started this organization, and it was way back when iPods first started.
Yes, right.
So he realized that
We
if
had
he went to
Walkmans.
different nursing, right? Yeah, if he went to nursing homes and really created a playlist for someone, if the person was able to tell them, this is in memory care, so somebody living with dementia, if the person could tell them some favorite songs, or the family could
Yes.
tell them some favorite songs, and they made a playlist, and you can see
Yes.
like how it changes a person's
It
mood.
really does.
And really, and they found that it had lasting effects, not just for the
Right.
moment of listening to the song. So
I feel that music, we both, I have a theater minor, so we have musical theater, or just music in general, to me, is a feel-good thing for me. And I feel like that is a nice thing for people to have, to listen to music. It kind of settles you. You could pick up the songs. There's a movie, Gina, The Notebook.
Yes.
Okay.
The Notebook.
So in The Notebook, I don't want to give away the whole thing if somebody hasn't watched it, because it's a great movie.
Great.
It's a great.
Julianne Moore, I think.
No, it's
Ryan Gosling.
Yes, Ryan Gosling, and oh my goodness, I can't think of her name. She's a young actress, but
Yeah, I was thinking of
at the end of it, she was playing the piano. She was suffering dementia. They didn't really say what kind of diagnosis or anything, but you could see her play the piano. All of a sudden, she stopped. She forgot.
Yeah.
So that movie right there shows you that you sometimes it comes, and you can play the piano, or you can sing a song, and then all of a sudden you just forget.
Yeah, well, when you think about our brains, and that are made up of billions of nerve cells, right? And when you're losing nerve cells, or when they're dying off, those connections that are made, those pathways in the brain, sometimes those connections can happen, and that signal can connect, and other times they can't.
I know. And you would get that glimpse, like he did. She's back to me.
Yeah.
She's back. And then she would, that was hard to watch, but it happens, And, I feel like that there's families that, may not be affected by it, but I feel like dementia is something that a lot of people get affected by.
Well, and I had mentioned that 7 million seniors in the U.S. right now are affected by some type of dementia. And unfortunately, those numbers are expected to double or triple in the next 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
So it is definitely an epidemic.
Yes.
And it's something I think everyone should be aware of, some signs and symptoms.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we come across someone and that we don't know, and we may dismiss them as having a drug problem, or being drunk, and not that we should ever dismiss anyone, but sometimes, a little bit of knowledge goes a long way.
It really does.
And you can help support, or, help that person if you have a little bit of education, and just being able to guide them.
And you've been around it, and you've been around so many, patients that have been through it. So you've seen so many different stages. And I mean, so if somebody's out there listening right now, Gina, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this right now with my loved one, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way is, my phone number is 724-747-5006. And I have my email. Well, first of all,
I was going to say, do you have a website?
my website is dementia-care-solutions.com.
Okay. And I'll have all that information below if anybody missed that. But yeah, so they can go to your website. They can schedule an appointment.
Schedule an appointment or contact me. I would do a 20 to 30 minute free consult to see if and how I could help. Also for professional caregivers in senior communities, home care organizations. I do a lot of workshops and trainings. I also am a trainer for the Alzheimer's disease and dementia care seminar, and that after taking that class, you can apply to become a CDP or a certified dementia practitioner.
Okay.
So that's wonderful for professional caregivers, but also for family members.
Right.
It's just such valuable information. So there's many different ways that I try to help and support unpaid or professional caregivers.
I love this, Gina. You have a passion for this because you, like I have. Can I take one of these?
Absolutely.
I just grabbed it.
Yeah.
Because we've both seen it in our own family members, and and we've seen it. You've seen a lot of patients go through it, and I'm learning so much just by having a couple episodes with people that are really educated on this. And I did not even know that dementia had so many different types.
Yeah.
And the stages that we go through in our lives, we may not even know. I'm in my 50s. I may have some brain loss or some things that are happening that I don't even know about,
Well, and we also have learned that changes in the brain are happening 10 to 20 years before symptoms occur, which is scary.
I know.
But that's another reason, to ask your doctor to do a baseline cognitive test. And then if he has concerns, he would send you to a neurologist.
Right.
And there are blood tests now for markers for Alzheimer's, at least.
Okay.
There's also imaging.
Great.
You
So
had
we
talked
are
about
really
plaques
advancing now.
and different
Brain
proteins
plaque,
that
yes.
attack our brain cells. So there are some, great resources and services and out there. And there's a lot of home care and advocates. I also do. It just came to mind support groups. I do about 5 a month, and so I have those.
Gina.
Yeah.
Where do you do that at?
So I can give you that to
Yes.
post, and
Yeah.
I have it on my website. But I do one in Chico Bocello's in Canonsburg.
Okay.
I also do one at the Hemsley House in South Hills. I have one for spouses in Panera Bread at the Galleria in Mount Lebanon.
Oh, wow.
I do one at the Province Senior Community in Wexford. And then in June will be the first time I'll be doing one at Ridgecrest at Cranberry Woods.
Oh my gosh, Gina, so you're all over Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
doing
everywhere
it.
from south to the
The
north. And
yes.
yeah, so they're on my website and
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely
different
have
days
that
of
information.
different weeks in the month.
I appreciate you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
have learned so much. And Gina, what you do, and just watching, people that you are caring for, even being in dementia, and knowing about what's happening to some people that, you meet, that you care for, But being there for the caregiver is something that we never really put in the forefront. And I feel like now we've got to take care of the caregivers,
Absolutely. And one statistic maybe to leave everyone with is when you're if you're a sole caregiver for someone who's living with dementia, you are 40% more likely to die before the person you're caring for.
Oh my gosh.
That's scary, isn't
That is
it?
really scary.
But if you think about it, as a caregiver, as a parent, we're the last person we think about.
Right. It's the
right?
burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're exhausted.
sometimes, I think when my kids were young, did I eat today?
Yes.
Did I shower today?
Right.
So if you're caring for someone with something so consuming like dementia,
Yes.
you are often not paying attention to your
You
own
put
self
yourself in the back. Yeah.
or your needs. And
Exactly.
so if you think about the story of Gene Hackman,
Yes.
that's
oh my
unfortunately
gosh, yes, that
an
was the same.
example.
And when people hear those stories, about someone who was famous, they think, oh, what's wrong with them? Like, they don't know that they had, some form of
he had
dementia.
very severe
And
Alzheimer's.
of Alzheimer's, and and his wife probably was the caregiver, and
She-
so she was a lot younger, but she was suffering too.
Yes, she had the HEPA virus, I believe.
Yes.
And they had found on her computer she was looking for signs and symptoms, and
Yes.
so she died
Right.
out of from lack of getting medical attention, and then,
Right.
as far as we know, about a week later he died, but
Yes.
probably because he couldn't care for himself. She was the sole caregiver. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's it's something that as much as people don't want to talk about, this is so important.
absolutely.
And I know we're all like, oh, I got time. Well, when you get to that crossroads where you're like, wait a second, it's good to be educated. It's
Yeah.
good to know before it happens, or just be your own advocate, and make sure to get tested when you feel like things are off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We don't like to admit when
I'm
something's wrong.
fine, I'm fine.
Right, but it's very important,
Yes.
just to get tested, and please contact me, because if I can't help you, I have a huge network of people that can.
I
So
love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tina, thank you so much for your time, for your education that
Thank
you
you, Jen.
provided us today, and the awareness. So I know I learned a lot. I'm sure my viewers, my audience learned a lot. I appreciate you being on.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
being here.
much. This is another episode of Spill with me, Jenny D. Take care.
Come spill with me.